Did you know that nearly 70% of parents report having conflict with their adult children at least once a month? It's way more common than you think. But I want to ask you this. Have you ever found yourself in that heated argument with your adult son or daughter and you just wanted to find a way to make peace? I have a feeling that's all of you. But resolving conflicts with adult children can be tough, as you know, and it's also a very delicate matter. So you have to tread kind of lightly to figure out the dynamic first. But as parents in general, we want to maintain the bond, and that's what our heartstrings are being pulled. But we want to have that harmony within the family, but it's not always easy. So in today's world that's rapidly changing, there's generational differences, there's all these different perspectives, and all these things can lead to disagreements that seem over the top, right? But the good news is that with the right strategies and the mindset and the drive, you can navigate these challenges. And ultimately, you will strengthen the relationship with your adult kids. However, your responsibility is you, their responsibility is them. And that, my friend, is where the struggle comes in, because you want to change both of you. And we need to focus on you first. So let's dive in. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of strategies, but before I get to that, one of the biggest hurdles that you're facing when dealing with disagreements with your adult child is the emotional toll that it takes. How many of you are feeling the emotional toll, right? It's natural to feel hurt. It's natural to feel frustrated and disappointed. So when our children disagree with us, especially if it's something that we feel strongly about or are very convicted about, but often our emotional response can escalate the situation. And I see it time and time again, and I did it time and time again. And that will make the whole process harder. It's going to be harder to resolve the issue when we do that. So another common challenge is the communication barrier. That can arise from generational differences, right? And it seems like these generational differences, even though it's been around forever, there's always a generational gap when you have a child, but it still seems to be so prevalent in such different ways nowadays. So what we mean to say in general can get lost in translation. And that also leads to these misunderstandings and all this conflict. But as our kids grow older, they sometimes feel the need to assert their independence, which can also be interpreted as disrespect. Now, I know full well there's a big difference between that type of misinterpretation and full out disrespect that some of you are dealing with. But I also want you to think about there's the issue of the past unresolved conflicts. Those things resurface and it taints these current arguments. So you may be having an argument about something that's minor, but all these other things come to the surface. So if these are not addressed, these underlying issues create that sense of resentment that we talk about all the time. And it makes it harder for you guys to have that common ground, which is what we really need. So the fear of being seen as uncool or out of touch, that holds parents back, believe it or not. That holds them back from expressing their concerns or opinions. And we need to get away from that, right? So let's talk some strategies. The first one is effective communication. We talk about this a lot, so I'm going to go through this one pretty quickly, but it's active listening and empathy. We need to do that with our kids. We need to do that with everyone. But we need to avoid those triggers that typically escalate conflicts. Those are the ones we need to avoid when possible until the waters can be calmed a little bit. We want to be able to have better communication by truly understanding each other. And a lot of that is listening. And I know you guys know that, right? We talk about that all the time. Using I statements, again, very commonly talked about, but it is something that most of you don't do. I didn't. We need to provide that example of using I statements to express our feelings in a constructive manner. It also helps us avoid blame, and we can be more honest when we're saying I versus you. You did this, you make me feel this way. They don't need to hear that. Nobody needs to hear that. The second strategy is setting healthy boundaries. Again, those clear boundaries we talk about a lot. They need to be clear. They need to be respectful. They can reduce conflict, right? And they can create a more peaceful relationship. Now, again, when you set boundaries, you have to remember that you are not responsible for how they react, right? So they do help in defining. We need to define those boundaries to be able to create them. What is the acceptable behavior on both sides? And we want respect on both sides. It's their choice if they abide by the boundaries that you come up with. So for those of you that I have not talked with before and you are looking for some guidance, whether it be group coaching, one-on-one coaching, you want to learn more about that, click the link below for the discovery call. I would love to talk with you. So I look forward to hearing from those of you that are ready for that. Thirdly is managing emotional response. Guess what? You need to stay calm during conflict. That's probably the most important time to stay calm. So managing your own emotions, like during heated conversations, who does that? Practice it. Practice it. We need to avoid the escalating arguments, but what if you can't avoid it? What if it's there? Don't match their energy. Do not match their energy. And number 4, the fourth strategy I have is empathy and compassion. We want to validate their feelings, but I want you to realize that it doesn't mean you have to agree. Just because you validate someone's feelings doesn't mean you have to agree with anything that they're saying. You don't have to agree with their viewpoint, but it's going to help you in building trust and reducing tension in the relationship long term. So these are some really good ways to start. And then in the next video, I'm going to finish with the other 4 tips because we want to stop these arguments. There's no reason for arguments. Again, we want to be able to look at it almost as if your adult child is arguing with you, it needs to be a one-sided argument because you're not participating, because you're not matching the energy. That argument needs to turn into a conversation. And that's ultimately our goal. So I hope this helps you some. I'll see you in the next one. God bless.